Hi, welcome to another edition of Veterans Forum. I'm PJ Scott, your Navy Waves veteran, Vietnam era, and I'm the creator, host, and producer of Veterans Forum. I've been doing this now for about 11, 12 years. Welcome to the program. This program is for vets, and I always have a myriad of guests and topics, and some of my programs are on the Veterans Forum Network channel, so you can check those out. Some interesting interviews. With me today is Ben. Ben, tell me your last name again.
My full name is Juan Benjamin Roybal.
I didn't want to mispronounce your last name.
Yeah, Roybal, R-O-Y-B-A-L.
But you do go to Ben, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm a veteran of the Korean War. I was in the United States Navy.
Well, let's see a picture of this handsome guy here.
Yeah, that's a picture of me when I was really gorgeous.
Yeah, well, weren't we all at one
Yeah.
time?
Well, you know, thing is, I'm now 81 years old, and I'm not really gorgeous anymore, although I think I am.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
a good attitude to have.
But in
Jesus
those
knows how
days-
gorgeous you are. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. In those days, I really had it.
Now, how many years were you in the Navy?
Oh, I was only there 2 years.
Okay, now tell us a little bit before we jump too much into your Navy time, because I like our veterans to know, or the viewing audience to know, that veterans had a life before joining the military, and you certainly have a life after you joined the military. So tell us a little bit about your childhood, where you were born, and you have an interesting family history there.
Yeah, I was born in New Mexico. My family came to New Mexico almost 400 years ago, about 13 years before the Pilgrims got here to the United States.
Oh, okay.
We were already there.
Uh-huh.
We established a capital in what is now the Rio Grande Valley of New Mexico.
Uh-huh.
And of course, the Indians were not on our side,
Right.
so they burnt it.
Oh, dear.
you know. But anyway, we still had that capital built. And my family were soldiers under the King of Spain that were sent north to look for gold, because the gold in Spain was slowly disappearing. And the king said, go north, find more gold.
Right.
And my family was part of the ones that came here
Uh-huh.
to look for gold, and they stayed here.
Uh-huh.
They
And New Mexico.
Yeah, in New Mexico. They must have been reasonably good soldiers, because the King of Spain gave them what is known as a land grant. And that's where we grew up.
Uh-huh.
The only thing is, when that became part of the United States, after the war with Mexico in 1845, somehow or other the land grant was lost. And to this day, they're fighting to get the land grant back, but they haven't got a chance against the government.
Right.
So,
right.
but the land grant wars are still going. And now the land that we at one time owned is now part of the Kit Carson National Forest.
Oh,
That's
okay.
it. That was our
Okay.
land grant.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, in 1945, I was appointed to go to Washington, D.C. as a page in the United States Senate under Senator Dennis Chavez.
Well, that had to be a really huge honor for your family. Not everybody gets to be a
Well,
senator.
I was the only
page.
one.
Oh, even so.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Even so.
I was the only one. Anyway, I went there to Washington, D.C. As a page, and I stayed there until I graduated from high school in 1950. We had our own school in the Capitol, down in the basement of the Capitol.
Oh, okay. So those pages, then, to be clear about this, because, I believe you're the first senatorial type page I've ever met.
Yeah.
Your education wasn't sacrificed because you were a page for the senator.
Oh, no, we had our own school.
Oh, cool.
We had our own school in the basement of the Capitol, and that's later moved after I left the page. It was moved to the House of Representatives.
I would imagine that must have been a very busy time. 45, the war was still going on.
No, the war was over
Was
when
it
I got there.
when you got there?
Yeah,
Oh,
when I
okay.
got there, the war was
Okay,
over. I got
okay.
there in September, I think,
Oh, okay.
or maybe August.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, the day that I got to Washington, D.C. was the day that they had the parade for Admiral Nimitz. And they had a big old parade. Me coming from New Mexico, I didn't know anything at all about parades. I
Yeah,
just
yeah,
watched it all.
the beachfront property doesn't reach to
Yeah,
Mexico.
I know. I know.
Okay.
But anyway, in 1948 or 49, an admiral came to us at the Capitol Page School and got all the ones that were 17 to a meeting where he gave us a real good con job. Said, you know, we're having a
I'm assuming you were among the 17-year-olds.
Yeah.
Okay.
He said,
Okay.
you know, we need some publicity to get people to join the reserves. So if we can get all of you that are 17, or some of you, to join the reserves,
Navy Reserves.
the Navy Reserve,
Right.
I'll see to it that you get all kinds of perks and benefits and a little money.
Uh-huh.
And so some of us did join the Navy Reserve, others joined the Marine Reserve.
Uh-huh.
But the problem was that in 1950, the Korean War broke out, like it might break out again today.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And I have a hunch this is how
Yeah. So anyway,
this is how you joined
yeah.
the Navy.
In 1951, they activated the reserves,
Uh-huh.
and there I go
Uh-huh.
to Bainbridge, Maryland,
Uh-huh.
to boot camp,
Right.
and that's how I came to join the Navy.
Uh-huh.
Is I was sort of conned a little bit.
Uh-huh.
My Navy career wasn't. I was attached to destroyer escorts, and I became a gunner, mostly because I grew up with guns, and I'm very good with guns. I still am.
Uh-huh.
Even though I'm a little blind,
Uh-huh.
I have shotguns that I can aim without really aiming and hit what I want.
Okay.
So, and that's what I do.
So don't mess with you.
Yeah, don't keep the bandits away.
Okay, now tell me about, you were on destroyers. Did they go around the Korean Peninsula? I mean, what was your ship's
No,
mission in that?
No, I was with the Atlantic Fleet.
Oh, you were at the Atlantic.
The Atlantic Fleet, yeah, because
Oh, okay.
I came out of Washington D.C.
Uh-huh.
and I was with Desland, what they call the Destroyer Atlantic Fleet,
Mm-hmm.
and we went on, meandered all over the world, you know, and
Uh-huh.
but as far as the actual war conditions, they were very minimal.
Uh-huh.
The
Now,
for-
did you make all the ports in Europe?
I made some,
All the ones?
yeah, but we did a lot of. Like in Guantanamo, we did a lot of cruising around Guantanamo Bay, which in the last few years become real popular with all the bad guys that we have incarcerated
Yes,
in Guantanamo Bay.
right.
We called it Gitmo. I think they still do.
I believe you're right.
Yeah,
yes.
I still
Yeah.
think they do.
Yeah, right.
But like I say, you know, my wartime duties were minimal. You know, other than the fact that I was a gunner, because I could shoot good. I still can.
Well, the country still needs to stay in readiness because frequently wars don't announce themselves 6 months in advance to prepare. I mean, you've got to stay ready.
You never know. You know,
Right.
war is funny.
Yes,
War is funny, but the biggest thing that the United States tries to do is to eliminate all major wars.
right.
And that's why we're instrumental in the formation of the United Nations. And to a great extent, the United States pays for all of the United Nations, whether it's through soldiers from other countries or aid to those countries or whatever. It's the United States that does it.
Now, before we bounce out to the rest of your lives, did you make friends with some of the other senatorial pages there in Washington, D.C.? Did you
I
stay
made
in touch with any
some
of
of
them?
them. I was always surprised that more of them didn't go into politics. The only reason I see is because we saw the bad and the good and the bad
Right.
of what was going on and the things that occurred, and so most of us, I guess, never went into politics. The only person I know of that graduated with me that went into politics was John Dingell from Michigan.
That name
Yeah.
sounds slightly familiar.
Yeah, his father was a congressman from Michigan, and when his father retired as a congressman, and John took over his seat,
Oh, I
and he
see.
stayed there all, I guess, throughout most of his life. But I
okay.
sort of lost track of John Dingell the last few years. But in the 80s, he may have gone over to the other side and see what it looks like. I don't know. I haven't heard anything at all about John Dingell.
Well, I'm a California girl, lived in Washington for many years, so I don't keep up with too
Yeah.
much of what's going on in other
Yeah.
states, but the name did sound slightly familiar
Yeah,
to
he
me.
was from Michigan, but he's the only one that I know of that went into politics, although most of us were perfect candidates to have gone into politics because we know so much about it. But
Would give you a leg up if that's what you wanted to
yeah,
do.
yeah,
Right.
but I guess none of us did.
Well, okay, so then you get out of the Navy after do a 2-year stint, and then what?
Well, I went back to the Capitol because in those days they had a law that said that if you go into the military, when you come back out, they have to give you your job back.
Oh, I see.
And so I was, by that time, in my 20s, and I was too old to go back and be a page.
Right.
Although I'd passed a little bit to where I was, when I left, I was a chief page.
Now, did your parents live in Washington, D.C. during
Oh,
this
no,
time, or they
no.
stayed in New Mexico?
No, they're in New Mexico.
Oh,
No,
okay.
they never left. I was the
Oh.
only one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was the only one that was there. And there was, I grew up fast.
Yes.
I grew up fast. But it was, in those days, the society was a little more controlled.
Yes.
We knew the difference between good and bad and what was viable and what was not.
Right.
So
right.
we just didn't do the things that are done now.
Yeah. So, okay, you're not going to get your page job back because you've
Yeah,
gotten older and
yeah.
wiser, presumably in the Navy. So what
Yeah,
did
so
you end up doing?
Yeah, I went to the sergeant at arms who controlled the patronage, and he said, Ben, he says, we got to give you any job you want, whatever it is. And so I said, well, I'd like to go to school at Georgetown full time, and the only way I can do that is if I run one of these elevators at night when the building is closed. He says, it's yours. So that's what I did. I ran the elevator in the Senate office building at night. The building closed at 5, and I started working at 5:30.
Oh, so you really had a lot of great study time.
Yeah. So I just sat there. There were just 2 people there, a policeman at the door, and myself. We just sat there and studied, both of us. He was a medical student
Oh.
at Georgetown also. And we would sit there and study for 8 hours. And the only office that was open at that time was 2 offices open in the building. One was John Kennedy's office, which was right above my elevator. And the other one was on the other side of the building, which was Lyndon Johnson's office.
Now, were you able to see any of these gentlemen, or because of your work
Oh,
shift,
yeah.
it was?
No, I knew Jack real well. Of course, I knew him before, mostly because he was a senator, and the Kennedys never had any money. So if he was in the House of Representatives and eating, he had to borrow money from somebody.
Now, that sounds bizarro to me, and I'm sure a lot of my audience, we know the Kennedys as being fairly well-to-do. How
Oh,
is it
no,
that he
th-
didn't
no.
have money?
They never carried any money at all.
Oh, that must have been how they stayed wealthy.
It could be. But anyway,
No offense.
they would come over and say, "Ken, I need $5." And I give him the $5, or so whoever it was, the pages, I give him $5. And he'd say, go see Ted. Tell Ted you gave me $5. Ted Sorensen, that was his AA. And
Oh,
we'd
okay, I'm glad you made the distinction there,
Yeah.
because I'm thinking Ted Kennedy would have still been in school at
No,
that
no,
time.
no, Ted Sorensen.
Yeah, okay.
And we'd tell Ted, and he'd just peel out $5.
Oh, I see.
And the same thing happened at Georgetown. He lived about, maybe 2 blocks from the university. And he spent a lot of time at Georgetown with the professors. And he was very close to the professors at Georgetown. And if he was going to get coffee or going to eat something, he had to have money. But there was a lot of the people from the Hill that went to school at Georgetown.
Right.
And he'd come over and borrow money. Tell Ted. Yeah, tell Ted.
Okay, and
give
if
me
you always
money.
got paid back, no
And
problem.
you got paid back.
Right,
yeah.
well, okay, the chances
Yeah.
of him getting robbed or something probably was minimized. But what
Well-
were you studying at Georgetown? What was your area that you were trying to get a degree in?
Well, I went to the School of Foreign Service.
Foreign service.
And basically what they do is they teach you how to be a diplomat. You're supposed to, when you finish, go to work in the State Department as an ambassador or whatever, climb up to be an ambassador. But I had been abroad by that time quite a bit, and so I didn't particularly feel like I wanted to go anywhere outside the United States because they don't like Americans. So I went on ahead and got my degree from Georgetown in Foreign Service, and I never went to work for the State Department because they had a policy at that time that you had to be a WASP to be in the State Department, a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Oh, gee.
You know, and I'm from New Mexico, you know, we don't We don't know what those people are.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
And
right.
women couldn't go in there either.
Did you know this up front?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, I
but you
knew it.
still joined that, okay, well, you got
Yeah.
the education. So
Well-
how did you end up using that education?
Well, I did an awful lot. I only basically had 2 jobs. I was a photographer for a while, about 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of my life, I sold books in military bases
Mm-hmm.
for the Encyclopedia Britannica and the great books of the Western world.
Oh, okay.
And that's what I did almost all my life,
Mm-hmm.
is just those 2 jobs. And I enjoyed it. It was a very good life.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with military in the different bases. When I was here in the Fresno area, I'd work a couple days at Lemoore at the Navy base,
Right.
and maybe 3 days at Castle
Uh-huh.
in Atwater,
Right.
or
Right.
vice versa. So, and I
Right.
would get all the leads and talk to military all the time.
Uh-huh.
But basically, that's what I did. And when I finished working, when I retired, I wanted to stay active.
Mm-hmm.
So I became a volunteer as a senior companion,
Uh-huh.
and they attached me to Catholic Charities in Fresno,
Right.
and I was with Catholic Charities there. I did the paperwork for the blind, the disabled, and the aged,
Mm-hmm.
and veterans. California had a program where if you rented a house or an apartment, you would get a rebate back from the state of California for X number of dollars for having rented
Mm-hmm.
to pay the taxes.
Right.
And if you owned the place, you would get a rebate back also.
Mm-hmm.
But people had to stand in line to see me, to fill out the papers to get the rebates. And that's what I did for a number of years as a senior companion.
So you were really helping people.
Oh, yeah, I did. I'll bet I never really totaled up the amount of money,
Uh-huh.
but I did 50 people a day, every day, 5 days a week.
And how long did you have the stamina to do that?
Oh, 20 hours a week.
Mm.
Yeah, 4 hours a day, 5
Oh,
days.
okay. So those 50 people, you asked the direct questions, and they were just in and out.
In and out, in and out. I do their paperwork. But I must have raised for the blind seniors and disabled and veterans and stuff. I must have raised maybe $5-7 million a year.
Oh, wow.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
In fact, it was
Now, how did you fundraise to make that kind of money for those kinds of
from the
charities?
state.
Oh, okay.
From the state. From
Oh,
the
so
state
you
of-
were like grant writing? Is that what you're
Not
talking
really
about?
grant writing. I was just writing out the applications to receive their rebates.
Oh,
Receive their
okay.
rebates.
Uh-huh.
In 2003 and 04, I was the senior volunteer of the year
Uh-huh.
for Fresno County.
Well, that's
Yeah.
really something to be proud of.
Kopi Kapalopoulos, I think what his name.
Yeah, Kopi with Channel
Yeah,
26.
Kopi, yeah.
your
He's the
local-
one that presented the thing
How nice.
to me.
How nice.
And we had it, it was, I don't know, must have been 200 or 300 people there.
Now, did you retire because your vision started? to
No,
get-
no, I just retired because I was 65.
Uh-huh.
And at that time when I retired, I figured I'm going to go back to school.
Mhm.
And so I enrolled at University of California State University, Stanislaus.
Uh-huh.
And I was in the process of getting a master's. And I was about a year and a half into it. And then I realized that, or I found out that I had diabetes, and I couldn't walk that far.
Mm.
I had a long walk from the parking lot to the campus in the different classes.
Right.
And it was becoming very, very difficult for me to do that.
Uh-huh.
And so I dropped out.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I became a senior companion.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And did the paperwork for the blind and disabled and the seniors. And but I
Did that make it a little easier? Now, you have macular degeneration, is that correct?
yeah, but I didn't get it then.
Uh-huh.
I only got my macular degeneration about 3 years ago.
Well, what I was going to say, did it make it easier for you to at least understand and know what you were dealing with, since you had been previously helping those kinds of folks?
No, I didn't. My mind is still as good as
Yes,
it was
it is.
then.
Right, right, right,
My mind is great. I'm really thankful for it,
right.
and I could still do it.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem is that when I write something, I know in my mind, I know what I'm writing, and I know it's correct. However, you may not be able to read it.
Right.
Not because you're blind, it's just because
Right.
The way I write.
Well, I prefer getting emails, and I rarely read my mail because the print's not big enough. I mean, I have to see 22 bold font size print, or I just can't manage it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I have a machine called CCTV, but I have to have 42 font.
Okay, for those folks that don't know that might have a person in their family with serious visual problems, please tell them what that CCTV is, because this is not like turning on your TV at home.
Yeah, CCTV is a special TV where if you have anything that you want to read or see, say for instance you want to see this picture, you can put the picture here. It's like a camera coming down on the picture and looking at it, and you look at it on a screen, and you can get different sizes.
Much like a computer screen.
Yeah, like a
Right,
computer screen.
right.
And you get different sizes of print. If you have a difficult time seeing, you have to enlarge it. Of course, the more you enlarge it, the less you see
Right,
on the print.
right.
But
right.
it enables you to read the important things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, I've reached a stage where if I get a letter, which I get a letter all the time, I just put the envelope there, and I put it under the CCTV, and it reads the address and the name of whoever wrote it. And I know in my mind, I know already what they want. So, I either put it on the important part, or it goes into the round trash can.
Well, sometimes, and we're coming to an end here, when people are told they're losing their vision, or they're going to have to take an arm or a leg or whatever is going to be disabling to them, it sounds like you just faced it head on and got on with the business of living.
Yeah, it was no big thing. I knew I could do everything well. Always have been able to do everything really well. And I have a lot of confidence. So that I would just didn't bother with thinking about it. I just did what I had to do. And down the road, I knew somewhere there I had to stop driving.
Oh, yes.
I had to stop driving, but I hadn't convinced myself that I was ready for that, because I can drive real well.
Right.
I
Well,
never-
I used to
yeah.
too, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But anyway, what happened to me was I was going down the road, and because I drove very slowly because I couldn't see too well. And there's a line of cars behind me, so I pulled off to the side of the road so that they could go by me. And I'm going very slowly, like 2 or 3 miles an hour, alongside the road, and I ran into a telephone pole.
Oh, okay.
Telephone pole got in the way.
Yeah, okay, so I guess that
That's-
was the moment.
That was
you,
when I
driving
said,
is
"Oh, that's it," and I
Okay.
just haven't driven since. Now I didn't really damage the car or anything like that because I was only going maybe 2 or 3 miles an hour.
Right, but
But
still.
I did run into the telephone pole.
I think your guardian angels
And
is
that-
trying to get
that was
through
it,
to-
you know.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
haven't
Now, you
driven
have a
since.
dog at home, right? Does
Yeah.
she assist you somewhat?
Yeah, I have what I think is a service dog. Oh, she doesn't have papers to say so.
Right.
But basically, she and I live together in a house in Atwater. And her job is to let me know when anybody comes to the gate.
Right.
If it's a friendly person, the dog just barks a little and wags her tail and kisses them when they come
Right.
here.
Uh-huh.
If it's a bad guy, she barks real loud, boy. And I know it's not a friendly person coming. So I just go to the bedroom, and I get my shotgun, and I meet them at the door. Yeah.
Okay, so she's your warning bell then.
She's my warning bell,
Well-
and I trust her.
Right. Ben,
Yeah.
you've had an interesting life. Thank you for being a guest on Veterans Forum and for doing your 2 years with the Navy in the early 50s.
50s, yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Now, folks, if you're dealing with a disability, I am, Ben is, I guess it's okay for you to grieve a little bit and be shook up, but at some point, you really do need to get on with your life, accept the new reality of your life, and don't be afraid to ask for help. And if you are a veteran, for God's sake, contact your nearest vet rep. Most counties have a veteran representative. Now, there are some states that are huge and they have counties that are pretty sparsely populated. So I cannot say that every county across the USA would have a vet rep, but your state has many counties and you can find a veteran representative. Go to them and ask them for help. You can also contact a veteran service organization like the American Legion, the VFW, DAV. I find out if you're a visual issue, try to find out where your nearest Blinded Veterans Association is, and ask if they have a service officer that can help you. You can also look on the internet. There's a wide variety of things on the net that will tell you about how the VA can help you in some way, shape, or form. So, and unlike the Blinded Veterans Association and the Paralyzed Veterans Association, because I've interviewed several paralyzed guys, they're one of the few veteran service organizations that your issue, like a disability, doesn't necessarily have anything to do with your military time. We have people in the BVA that are blinded, had nothing to do with military time. Well, we're coming to a close here. Again, thank you, Ben, for sharing your life with us. And I would ask you to pray for the families that have lost loved ones and for those that are taking care of our disabled. This is PJ Scott, wishing you good fortune. God bless.